Welcome back to Judo Highlights. Today's video we're going to break down Arbuzov, 2025 World Champion at under 81. As you can see, very flexible guy, moves like Spider-Man a little bit. Very good defenses, we'll definitely talk about that a bit in this video. And then of course his newaza as well. We'll get into the details of it after we have a look at his throws, but have a look at this. I've never seen someone able to get their hips so close to the ground before. He is insanely flexible. And it's these kinds of attributes, not only his newaza but tachiwaza as well. Just being a really flexible guy helps him so much. So we'll start off here, and this is from the World Championships. So it starts off a seoi nage. He does have a good seoi nage, but have a look at this, the flexibility to come up from a lunge like that. Just constantly amazed by Arbuzov's flexibility. Now he does like this grip along the back, and he does like kochigari. But look at the transition. He gets the score, and then he immediately starts looking for the newaza, and he's very good in the scrambles and the newaza, and he has some relentless pins as well. He doesn't fully get the osaikomi here. His opponent does get out, but as I said, this is not the end of this contest. This time now, double sleeves that he does get, and the kochi that he loves so much, this time for wazari. He kind of thinks it should be ippon. But then in the next exchange, you see the ashiwaza again, and that big hand around the back. So really loves that big hand around the back. And I do say this to people, if you do like this grip, it has to be your main thing. It has to be the one thing that you're looking for. You can't just do it occasionally. And Arbuzov, I mean, he does it a lot, and he's very comfortable in this situation, offensively and defensively. Now, even the great Grigulashvili, he knew how dangerous Arbuzov could be with that big grip over the top. You can see him defending it well here. And then Grigulashvili was trying to go first, trying to not let Arbuzov settle, especially into that big grip over the top. So one thing he would do is take double sleeves here and just pin him down. But then when Arbuzov would look to go over the top, Grigulashvili would jump in for an attack immediately. So people know it, they know how dangerous Arbuzov can be when he gets that big top grip. And it's because these two throws that he does from here, this one, the surigoshi, and this next one, the ogoshi. So it doesn't really matter if he has top grip or under grip, he just wants that hand somewhere around the back. And look at the hips and the flexibility, it's pretty impressive. And just one more example of his flexibility before we talk about grips and strategy. Have a look at this. Now Amano, he was trying to defend with a hand against the chest, but Arbuzov just too good at collapsing the space, folding around the space with his shoulders, his hips. Amazing stuff. Incredibly flexible guy. I can't say that enough. So let's talk about right versus left. And you'll see here, instead of taking the sleeve, he'll take the lapel. And that's just a really good way to secure that top grip all the way over the back there. Now he does eventually get a sleeve, but he still maintains that top grip. And you can see him looking to throw that hip in, use his flexibility, and score with things like uchimata, surigoshi. Now in the next exchange, you'll see him do it again. Lapel feed to the top grip. But this time things are a lot closer, and Arbuzov really loves this range. I showed you guys this little foot sweep from earlier on. In the close left versus right here. So he has the ashiwaza and also the big hip techniques from this position. And then of course, very good counters. Now I showed you earlier on in the video, Grigulashvili defending the big hand against Arbuzov. And that was from last year, 2024, where Grigulashvili, he won that contest. But this time it was Arbuzov, and Grigulashvili couldn't defend the big hand around the back this time. Maybe a bit of a mistake, Grigulashvili did initiate this position. But then after this, it was all Arbuzov. He starts off the kosoto and then just flows with it and gets the counter. And I think it's because he just loves this position, loves working in this position, very comfortable using his flexibility and good defense. Here's another great example. A lot of people would have given up and just gone to the floor in many of these situations or try to create space. But Arbuzov very comfortable here, loves the in close, and you can see he knows it better than most of his opponents. And here's another example of his awareness in the position. Here you can see him against Boltoboyev. who had a decent grip, but failed sumigaeshi attempt, and Arbuzov straight into the newaza. And just one more counter, because we've seen Arbuzov do this a lot. Even when he's in a bad position, left versus right, he is able to use those kind of long arms and roll people over. So we'll move on now and have a look at right versus right. Now this is a very typical situation, right versus right. In all my breakdowns, I almost always talk about this position and how different people do different things from here. In Arbuzov's case, he does like to feed the hand and look for the back grip. And as a little segue, I just want to talk about Arbuzov's newaza a little bit here, because his opponent Cass is an absolute monster on the ground. But you can see here Arbuzov challenging Cass. And I do recommend, if you've got JUDOTV, go have a look at this match. It's quite interesting. There's a couple of fouls by both guys earlier on in the contest too. But you can see Arbuzov really contesting Cass here, using those underhooks and the flexibility with the knees and the legs to try and get out of Cass's guard. And interestingly, he does it on both sides, so very competent both sides to pass like this. And he does eventually get it, but then we see the brilliance of Cass as well, using the armbar to get out of the newaza. And then Arbuzov, the flexibility, he doesn't care about that, stands up and waits for the mate. Now of course, like most judoka, he'll also look for the sleeve as well, but it's more about that big hand. And how about the sumigaeshi as well? Now you can really see in this contest just how good Arbuzov is at getting that big hand over the top, because Amano, he should be an expert at dealing with it. But you can see he just gets into a situation here where it's a little bit too much pressure and he just locks up with him. And of course Arbuzov, with all that space to work with, and we saw this earlier on as well, able to slide his hips in there like that. And so it's all about the big hand over the top, that space he gets from it. And I think Grigolashvili, he had the best idea, dealing with the sleeves, 2 sleeves at one time, because stopping this is incredibly difficult to do. And then of course he's got some good variety as well. We did see quite a lot of ashiwaza, but he has a kosoto as a counter, and then an osotogari here, this time really closing the space there. So we'll have a look at his newaza now, and he definitely has some of the best newaza in the game. Good transitions too. Here's what looks like a funakubo roll, and of course I mentioned the flexibility, very good at getting out of these positions here, using the knee to slice across and get the pass, and look at the balance as well in the newaza. Now of course sometimes your opponent really good at locking up the leg and you just can't pass it for some reason. I think in this situation Togiev just really good at not letting Arbuzov get any underhooks, and so he was kind of forced to fight up the top. And so what he did was locked on a choke, and so he does get the leg out, but he does just continue with the choke and does eventually get it here. So that is a nice variation to see. And this next one here against Sagi Muki starts in the tachiwaza. Arbuzov gets a little bit of ashiwaza to get it going, and then of course the transition. Now watch him as he goes over, he'll duck his head under Muki's arm here and use it to lock him in place and then get into the mount position. So a lot of sneaky tricks on the ground, Arbuzov. And then lastly guys, I'll leave you with this nice little battle here on the ground. So we see the score with a big hand over the top, the surigoshi. And now Mathieu from France, he's pretty good on the ground himself. Looks to be dominating the position here against Arbuzov. But have a look at this. Just does a little spin, gets out of the armbar and gets on top. And then he turns the position around and ends up dominating Mathieu on the ground here into the osaikomi. So Arbuzov, big monster, flexible, good balance, great throws, big hip throws. And I have a feeling he'll be at the top. He'll be at the top for under 81s for quite some time. Anyway guys, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.